See if we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the studio. I'm checking all the working parts and just making sure that we are live in the studio. It says that we are. I don't personally have a picture, but it's okay. Hopefully you do. We'll go with that. There we go. All right. Happy Monday. Happy December. It's a brand new month here in the studio. Registration opened this morning for spring semester. We only had one minor glitch where Miss Allison thought things were supposed to be automatically updated on the website, and I activated all the links. Everything was working on my end, but the website to get to those links were not updated. So I got that fixed. Everything should be working now. It's about 7 minutes late on my part. So on it. But those are active and live. It is the first week of December, you guys, and everybody has class this week. So this is my little graphic for if there's any oddities. My green screen is doing funny things today. But everybody is scheduled to have class this week. I did put some snowflakes here on Monday because I don't know if you've looked outside yet, but it is snowing. And I think last time I checked, no, that was last night. I haven't looked yet today. It looked like we'd get about 4 inches. So, but I thought the heaviest stuff was supposed to come this afternoon, and it's been snowing a lot this morning. So I'm not really sure now what to expect. So I gotta go and do a little bit more research and see what's what. Right now, we plan to be open, you guys, for classes today and tonight. So we've got some preschool classes going on now. We've got some homeschool classes going on this afternoon, and then we have, of course, our whole lineup of evening classes at both studios that are happening. So right now, we plan to be open. If that changes, we will let you know. So we have a link to our inclement weather policy that is going to be in the email that we get sent. So that's like the official statement from us and talks about kind of what our procedures are for notifying you if we close. We try really hard to be open, you guys. For the first 6 years in business, we never closed. We were always open in winter weather. And then COVID happened, and then we had to close. And so we try really, really hard. I think I could probably count on one hand the number of times in 11 years that we have not had classes because of weather. If something were to happen and we thought, well, you know what, let's just all not come. We will have makeups available, not just usually the Wednesday or the Friday makeups, not just the usual makeups, but additional makeup times for our families for those classes to get that lesson. Okay, so we'll wait and see kind of what it looks like. Now, everybody has a different drive into the studio. Everybody has a different comfort level with driving and weather. Everyone has different vehicles. So you use your best judgment on whether or not you can make it here. Personally, I am within walking distance, so I can make it to my studio without any kind of issue. But I know some of you guys drive further. You drive in roads that aren't plowed. You drive in rural roads. Like, I don't judge. You make your call, and you don't need to justify it to me, okay? So if you can't come, it's okay. It's okay. We will get you caught up. We will get you a makeup class. I promise. Okay. We will get it figured out. So use your best judgment. Be safe out there. And if you can make it to the studio, great. If you can't, it's okay. If we have to close, we will let everybody know. The first thing I do is post to Twitter because it is an easy broadcast system for me to use. It also puts all of the notifications in like order, right? So if you go to my page, you see everything in order. So you can see the most recent thing that I posted. I will post in the private Facebook group, but I don't know if you know this, they shuffle the order, and sometimes it sorts by like most relevant instead of most recent, which I don't know, but that's what Facebook uses to decide that. But make sure that you're looking for the most recent post, not the most relevant post. We will also post to Instagram and post it on the stories so you can see that. And then we will send an email out to the roster of the kids that are affected. So we don't blast the entire email list. We only send it to the roster of those classes that evening. So it'll go to the email that you have used to sign up for. And when we're messaging a group, a lot of times it goes to spam or promotion. So just be aware of that. If we are open for classes, there will not be an email. We'll just be here. It'll be great. Okay. All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk about what everybody's doing in class this week. Are you ready? So preschool fundamentals, new class, new month, new books. This is the December lineup. We will kick it off with, I'm trying to think. I think we kick it off with The Mitten is the first book of the month, and it has a bunch of animals in it, so it's really fun. There are a lot of different versions of this story. I didn't realize until we started doing it a number of years ago, but this is our version of it. It's by Jan Brett. Has a lot of different animals, and it's about coming across a mitten, and they climb into it because it's so warm and cozy. So this is a good one. Sometimes we have December classes, and there's no snow on the ground, and so it's not quite as relevant, but now there is because they'll have snow on the ground. We're also going to start a 3-part project this week, so they'll have 3 weeks to finish it during our project time. It is a multi-step project. It uses bleeding tissue paper. It uses watercolors with salt to create like a sparkly background. It uses some collage techniques, and then it uses, at the very last week, snow paint. When we read Snowy Day, we'll get out our snow paint, which is a puffy shaving cream paint with white glitter, and it stays puffy, so it's really pretty. So that'll be a fun project for them. For our K-3 and multimedias, I don't have any pictures. I should have put the pictures of the slideshow on there, but I didn't. It is watercolor month for all of our multimedia classes. K-3 classes are going to be doing a new project to us, and it is a donut painting project. A lot of times with our young kids with watercolors, one of the challenges, there are many challenges with watercolors, but one of the challenges is keeping the paint separate when you want them to be separate. And so when you're painting something more detailed than just one object, like a donut that has, of course, the bottom layer and the top layer of icing and then the sprinkles, keeping those things separate can be kind of challenging because you got to wait for it to dry. So we're going to actually do ours in separate pieces. So they will paint their donut, they will paint their icing, we'll put the sprinkles still on the icing or whatever decorations they want to put on it. And then we'll collage them together into our donut box, and they'll paint their donut box as well. So incorporating a little bit of collage, like cutting and pasting with watercolors, helps to make us successful in keeping our paints separate. This week in our classes, we won't actually start the project. We're going to use the media. We're going to play with watercolors. We're going to learn watercolor techniques. With this age group especially, since we're using a dry watercolor cake, a lot of the focus is on loading the brush appropriately because watercolors need water to work. And when you just tap that dry watercolor tablet, that tablet, like the palette, if you just tap it, you're not going to get any of that pigment to mix with the water. You have to actually apply some friction to it. And that way we can actually get that dry pigment to mix with the water, which then creates paints. So that's what we're looking for. So we'll learn that a little bit. We'll learn about the tools that we're using, how to activate our paints, wake up our paints, whatever we want to call it, how to load the brush. We'll also work a little bit on terminology so they understand what we say when it's bleeding, when it's glazing, when it's wet on wet, when it's lifting off, which is the technique that we use to add highlights or to erase. So we'll work on those, and we'll also look at a slideshow of inspiration. For our 4th and our 5th and our homeschool, also watercolor month. Their project is not new, but it hasn't been around for a couple years. So we're going to be painting some holiday themed baubles, picture ornaments, right? So these are crystally glass ornaments. We're going to use some wet on wet techniques. The kids will get to decide their composition. So whether their paper goes landscape, right, that long way, or portrait, which is the tall way, they will decide how their baubles or ornaments are laid out. They will be stacked in kind of orb shapes. And we will paint those using the wet on wet techniques where we actually paint water and then drop the watercolors into the water. That's called wet on wet. And then those are finished with some gel pens, some micro pens, some metallic markers, and then also some loose glitter just for some holiday flair. So if they want to paint their backgrounds, they can. Miss Allison's has a tendency to love a good negative space background, but I know a lot of our kids are maximalist, not minimalist, and if they want to paint their watercolor backgrounds, once the baubles are dry, right, because that's a key in watercolors, is making sure that you're letting different layers dry before you try to go right next to them with more paint, then they will be able to do that step as well. So we've got to this first week where they will look at their slideshow of inspiration, and they will do kind of the same thing as our K-3s. For a lot of them, for our 4th and 5th, this will be review as they learn how to wake up the paints, how to activate them, how to load their brush. They will learn. We really stress that, I mean, the brush does not have an infinite amount of paint in it. So after you load it and it's really juicy and you use it, eventually you've used it all up. It's not like a marker that just keeps going and going and going. And if you push harder, more comes out. Like, you gotta go get some more. So we'll play with that a little bit. And then we'll practice specifically what techniques so that they can get a sense of what they're going to be painting next week. We might do some thumbnail sketches in their journal where they work on compositions. And then next week we'll be ready to do the first step in our holiday baubles. 6th, 7th, and 8th, 12th. Also a project that we haven't done for a couple years. It is a watercolor seascape. Now this is a more advanced class because we're not doing just a single layer of paint. We're requiring them to do something called glazing, which is a more advanced watercolor technique. So when you're painting watercolor paint into water, we call it wet on wet. When you're painting watercolor paint onto dry paper, we call it a wash. And when you're painting dry or wet watercolor on wet watercolor, it's called dropping in. And when you're painting wet watercolor on dry watercolor, it's called glazing. And that's where we build up layers. So glazing is one of those that you have to put on the paint, the layer that's dry underneath it. And you have to do it in such a way that you don't disturb and disrupt that layer that's down, because watercolor paints reactivate and rehydrate and then they turn muddy. So we're going to learn a lot of glazing techniques with them. We're going to emphasize that as they paint their seascapes. They will work from a photo reference, and we have multiple photo references for them to choose from. So everybody's will be a little bit different. However they want to make creative choices after they have their reference, totally fine with us. But we just want them to have a kind of a jumping off point for their seascape. And they're all a little bit different. Some of them have boats, some of them don't. One of them has, or two of them have docks in the picture. Some of them are more at sunset or sunrise, and so the colors are different. You have like bright, colorful colors, right? Or they're backlit, and so the water's really dark. Some of them are more what you would think of with a seascape, so blue sky, blue water, that kind of thing. So we're going to play with techniques in week 1, where we'll review wet on wet, lifting off, loading the brush. Most of our big kids are going to know that stuff. And then we're going to really emphasize glazing in this first class. And they'll probably do some practice water painting. So like, not like watercolor painting, but how do you paint water? How do I translate water into watercolor painting? And they'll play with that. And then maybe even some clouds, practice painting some clouds, just so that they have there are lots of ways to do it. There's not one way to do it. We want to figure out what way they want to use when they do their painting. So we'll do a lot of playing around today, do some thumbnail sketching, pick out our picture. Their paintings are the only ones that we're going to tape flat onto a board before they start working, and it will stay on that board until the end of December when they take it home. Because they are working edge to edge, and watercolor paper has a tendency to buckle when you do that, we'll go ahead and have them tape a big white border and make sure that stays put for them. So I'm excited to see what they can do. This is a more advanced project. Because of that, the instructor team even got together yesterday to do a practice run for them, because for a lot of them, watercolors is not their medium of choice. And so, if you only touch it once a year, you kind of need a refresher. So it is my specialty. I teach watercolors every month. So I have had lots of practice, and I'm always in my watercolor paints. They are not. So we all got together and did kind of an intensive crash course lesson in watercolors, just to kind of refresh our brains, and then also work on our own terminology, our own cueing, that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to see what our kids will do with it. Creative explorations. I gotta get my notes out, you guys. All right. So the creative explorations, all new stations, you guys. It's a new month. So the media focus stays with multimedia classes, right? Last month was ink. This month is watercolors. These guys will have some additives that they can use, things like salt, things like tape resist, things like plastic wrap, which is not an instantaneous effect, but very cool. If the plastic wrap is crinkled in the paint and dries there, leaves like a marbling effect. So we'll play with different things with the watercolors. Our art history focus is the art of Paul Klee. So we're looking at Castle and Son, which is a really fun, blocky landscape. So we've got art history handouts for them. And then the winter landscape is our journal invitation. So looking at different snowy landscapes and drawing in our journals. We've got a collaborative vertical surface, which is a collage invitation to decorate our Christmas tree. The still life is evergreen boughs. Now, I have not been shopping yet this week because it's Monday morning, but I will go shopping probably tomorrow and hit up the family tree and grab some evergreen boughs. We will use this for fresh ones, like real ones, and we'll use that for a still life in our drawing classes, starting I think next week. But this week with our creative explorations, they'll have the opportunity to look at them. I love having them in the studio because they make the studio smell so good. And then, speaking of smelling good, our sensory bin is a scented cloud dough. Most of the studios also have sugar cookie Play-Doh, so it's a white Play-Doh that's scented with sugar cookie scent. So chances are that will be out as well. So pretty much everything in the studio smells good. For our Drawing 101 classes, oh, this is a fun one. I should have, oh wait, do I have it? It's over here. Hang on. Miss Grace prepped it for me. Here it is. So our Drawing 101 classes are going to be drawing ornaments, but you guys, they're not going to draw on paper. They're going to draw on metal. So this is a tooling foil. I believe it's a 20 gauge aluminum tooling foil. It's copper on one side and silver on the other in color. It's not actually copper, it's aluminum. It's copper colored on one side and aluminum on the other. When we set this on felt, so just like a softy ground, and use a wooden stylus or a pencil, like a really dull pencil, or an embossing tool, we can draw on this, and rather than leaving a mark, it leaves an indentation. And so we can actually use our drawing skills to emboss both the front and the back, emboss and deboss. So we're going to make Christmas ornaments out of this metal foil. So that's what we're going to draw on, which is such a fun way to draw. You can also color on this with the Sharpies or alcohol inks when we're done with it. So we can make it really colorful and shiny as well. So that's 101's lesson. I think 102 realistic, we'll do this as just a fun warm up in their class as well. For our 102 advanced realistic class, we're also doing ornaments, but we're just going to do these as a warm up because this will not take 90 minutes for our 102ers, but they will have fun with it. We're going to use photo references and we're going to draw from photo reference. I tried to pick references that have a lot of reflections in them. If need be, we may even break it into a grid, which is a technique that I don't think we've taught this year in class. And so for some of those kids that need to like look past what they think is there, a grid drawing, I know it helps me when I'm doing reflections, so we may teach that. We're going to use oil pastels, which is not a medium that we use very often in 102 drawing, but it is a good one. We use chalk pastels a lot. Oil pastels they just make sense for this lesson because it's I don't know, it lends itself to oily like shiny surfaces. So more so than chalk pastels, which ends up with more of a matte finish. The oil pastels already have kind of a shiny finish. So to me, they make sense. So we're going to use oil pastels, and we'll get out the baby oil and do a little blending with that as well. For our illustrative classes, 102 illustrative, we are moving to interior scenes. And so we're going into the inside room and we're going to be drawing interior scenes for our original characters for the entire month. This is a month that the kids either love or they hate. Either way, they need it though, because we're going to do the rules of linear perspective. We'll do 1 point perspective this week. We'll do 2 point perspective next week. So we have room templates this year that we're going to work off of. So everybody will already have their walls drawn and then they will fill it with the stuff. When we get to week 3, then they'll be able to draw all their own walls with 1 or 2 point perspective. But just to kind of get them started, we've got worksheets printed for them to work inside of, and then they will fill that room using the rules of linear perspective and rulers, which sometimes that in and of itself is enough of a challenge. For 103 kiddos, and my notes are wrong, advanced realistic kids are going to be drawing architecture. Again, rules of linear perspective. Most of theirs are 2 point perspective, although there are a few that are 1. And they're going to be using ink and watercolor washes to do a realistic sketch. Very urban sketching style. of exterior architecture. So well, that's not true. There are some that are interior. So some are exterior and some are interior. And I did the gamut. So some are really modern buildings when I found my photo references, and some are really like old world Gothic. So all sorts of different styles for them to choose from. And they will work from photo reference and then render that using ink and watercolor washes. So once they get their technical like lines in and they ink it, they can apply value using either the ink techniques, because we do an ink value scale when most of them have already done it. We do have it again if they need to refresh on a mini lesson for ink value scale, like cross-hatching, stippling, or scrumbling. Or since it is a watercolor wash that they're doing over the top, they can do their values using that. For our 103 illustrative, we're illustrating a single scene from a classic fairy tale, fable, or myth. So you got to first think of what that might be, and you got to pick a scene in it and illustrate that scene. We're using an artist, Ida Rentoul Othwade, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know on that last name, but she has a very delicate line style, very whimsical, and also has like thin, delicate lines with a watercolor wash. And so it is watercolor month in the studio, so we kind of tied that into all of our lessons. But like I said, these guys will be going for a classic scene. Now, how they represent their characters, right? Because you can take some creative licensing on reimagining what characters might look like, but we do want it in that delicate fairy tale style. Okay. Couple housekeeping things. Okay, starting with our weather policy. So that is on our website. If you go to the footer of the web page and look where it says for current students, makeups, schedules, and more, if you click that, there will be a link to the weather policy and you can take a look at it. Just to review, we talked about it at kind of the beginning of the video. We'll talk about it again, but just to review, we plan to be open, and if we're not, we will post to Twitter first, then we will post to the other social medias. Be aware that those are not always in like date time order. And then we will send an email to affected classes. So if you're on the roster for the class on whatever night, then you will get an email to the email that you used to register. So if you used one that you don't check very often, make sure you check it for that. We will send an email, and then I think that's it. So, but if we're closed and you're calling, we won't be here to answer, if that makes sense. So you can always send me a Facebook message, I guess. But the best place to look is going to be Twitter. All right, next thing, the 2026 spring semester registration is open and live on the website. No enrollments carry over. Make sure that you get signed up for your class. You have until, you guys, like today's the day for the t-shirt promo. So if you want the t-shirt, make sure you sign up. But registration will stay open. I think the 31st is the last day for the semester rate. So that's when Studio Club enrollment ends. And then, then we just leave it open. So if you wait until the first week of January to sign up, that's fine. As long as there's room in your class and you don't mind the monthly tuition rate, that's fine. You don't have to hurry. But I just don't want anyone to not know that you do have to re-enroll, I guess, is why we keep mentioning it. It's not trying to like make you do it like right away or push you out of your comfort zone. That's the only reason I keep saying it. Okay. All right. And then the last thing is just a little bit about winter break. So we're doing the same thing, you guys, that we did over Thanksgiving, right? So here's our month of December. We've got 3 weeks before like the Christmas week. So here, I'm going to scoot over so I'm not in the way. Here's our 3 weeks. If you're in a preschool class or if you're in a creative explorations class, these are your on weeks. And then we'll see you in January. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. These are the on weeks. If you are in a drawing class or a multimedia class, you got to have 3 class periods because that's what you paid for. So these are our first 3. We'll have all our lessons in this one. We will try to get the projects done just like we did in November. We'll try to send them home in week 3. In week 4, this whole week, our studio is closed. And then these 2 days, the 29th and the 30th, are our open studios. For winter break, they are art and PJs and hot cocoa open studios. So we invite the kids to wear their pajamas. We will have like washable stations out because we know you're in your cute little Christmas pajamas. So we try to make sure everything we have in the studio is a washable supply. And then we have hot chocolate for the kiddos. So as we get closer to time, I will also ask if there are any allergies so that I can make sure to have a hot chocolate alternative that is safe for everybody who is participating. Okay, so just I mean, if you wanted to let me know now, let me know now. But I'll send an email closer to time. Okay. So the 29th and the 30th are our open studios. We will do signups just like we did for the Thanksgiving week, and I will have those in next week's video. All right. That is everything. If anybody needs anything from me, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the studio. But if not, just know makeups are available this week. If winter weather prevents you from coming to the studio, it is okay. You don't have to justify it to me. We will be here and we will get you your class. Okay. Have a